What's up everyone, it's Dakota and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be taking a look at probably the best card from the Lord of the Rings set, and I think it's proven itself to be one of the best cards. It just in the number of deck lists it's being played in, the different kinds of archetypes, all the people that are experimenting with it, and just how versatile the card actually is, which of course we'll explain why here in this video. Of course, before we get too deep into that, I would appreciate it if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to see more videos like this, along with all the other Pioneer and Modern content that I do, please consider subscribing and ringing the notification bell so you know when those videos get posted. And of course, you can go to the link in the description of this video, follow me on Twitch, and go over my Discord channel as well. So, the One Ring came out in the Lord of the Rings set. It is a 4-mana indestructible legendary artifact that when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you gain protection from everything until your next turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each burden counter on the One Ring, and you can tap it to put a burden counter on the One Ring and then draw a card for each burden counter on the One Ring. So initially, it just seems like you are drawing an amount of cards, and then later you are paying the life. And you'd be correct. I think in most normal gameplay, you're tapping, you're adding a burden counter to this, you're drawing a card, and then on your next turn, you are essentially paying for that, later, by losing the 1 life for the 1 burden counter, you're losing 2 for the second one, so on. What people didn't anticipate, and I think what a lot of people did, they see the One Ring, they see that it costs 4 mana, which is usually kind of like the make or break point for a lot of cards in Modern. Of course, we've seen, like Jace the Mind Sculptor, arguably one of the best Planeswalkers, at least top 5 in the worst case, all time in a vacuum as a Planeswalker, sees no play in the format. You only see cards like the Wandering Emperor, if, the fact that it has the utility of having flash and then getting to remove a really hard to deal with creature on top of getting to make a 2/2 on your next turn, and, just having the ability to survive, so on. So, like, the One Ring is kind of already on this, like, teetering line of 4 mana, you really need to do something powerful, and giving you protection from everything is a nice bonus for when you cast it. It definitely does give you the incentive to cast it instead of trying to put it in your graveyard like on the first 1 or 2 turns of the game and then bringing it back on like turn 3. Also, the fact that it does allow you to draw an increasing amount of cards as you go on. Of course, as we know with the Modern format, if you're playing against more aggressive decks, like, yeah, you get to have protection from everything until your next turn. Maybe you get to draw a card too with this, but, there's a chance that you could, get burnt out by like your opponent, get overwhelmed by like the board position that they've created, because again, you are spending 4 mana on your turn to play this card. But I think what people didn't expect to happen is that with the One Ring, eventually you get up to a certain point and you're just going to draw another ring and you're going to be able to replace that ring with a newer one. So essentially what's going to happen is that, you draw, well, we'll say that you already have 3 counters on it. So you've taken 6 damage already from the ring. You're going to tap it, you're going to add another counter on it, which will be 4, and you're going to draw 4 cards. So to this point, you've now drawn 10 cards and you've lost 6 life to your own ring. You just play another ring and you reset it and you gain protection from everything until your next turn, obviously, which means then you will start taking damage. And then you activate that ring, you draw your 11th card, and now you've taken 7 damage. And this kind of like precedent has been set, essentially a life for a card in cards like Yawgmoth's Bargain. You have Necropotence, you have things like Phyrexian Arena as well, that all stipulate you losing a life or paying a life and then getting a card for it. And the One Ring breaks this mold in a way when you are playing multiple copies of this card. And of course, getting to stack the effects of like having protection from everything. You specifically, obviously, your creatures and planeswalkers aren't protected, but you yourself are, which means that it's going to be near impossible for you to lose any sort of life unless your opponent's playing like something like Zulaport Cutthroat, whatever, which really doesn't see any play, maybe of some rogue strategies at some LGS somewhere in the world. But this card does protect you from essentially like all the combos and stuff like that that are out there in Modern currently. and the fact that it is very hard for you to die to your own One Ring once it gets so many counters on it, because you are just so likely to find another copy of this card. On top of that, getting to pair it with a card like Shieldred, where you essentially get to gain a life for every card that you draw. Like, you're going to gain that initial, 2, 4, 6, 8, so on amount of life, and then you're going to end up losing like half that with the amount of burn encounters on the ring. But then you're just going to gain more of that all back. Omnath, just getting to gain life in 4 life increments and stuff. And until you get that third counter on it, you're very likely, after drawing 6 cards plus a few draw steps, to find another land to just gain another 4 life, which means you're going to slowly outpace the ring. And in both those scenarios, you don't even need to replace the ring. You can keep it around and keep drawing more cards. You could even like play another ring and then legend rule the new one away, so that you get the protection clause, and then you're also still just racking up the counters with the one ring and keeping ahead on life, to the point where like you're just you're out racing your opponent. I mean, eventually you're going to make all these land drops, you're going to be able to cast all these spells and stuff like that, and you're going to just grind your opponent out of cards if they don't have their own ring to keep up. And in all of those other decks that are playing the ring, they have to reset it by playing another ring, or some of those strategies don't necessarily need to do that. They can just keep going up on their ring. They have other ways to like gain life. They're forcing you to interact with their things early, and if you can't, you just kind of get ran over, kind of in that aspect. And especially in Shieldred's case, where you just get to drain your opponent for more life the more they want to activate the ring, and they kind of need to activate the ring if they want to find answers. And Shieldred doing Shieldred things since it's been printed. Of course, Orcish Bowmasters, which is also printed in this set, is a pretty good counter for this card. But these decks also just kind of have ways of dealing with, or Bowmasters and stuff like that. Like we've seen with the 4-color Omnath decks, they have like Solitudes that they can use in instant speed to deal with it. You have like reprieves, you have these like kind of like bounce to hand effects, and even if you take like a few damage from like your opponent's Orcish Bowmaster, like they get a creature with it, like you're more than likely able to deal with it, and then subsequently deal with their token as well in short order, and then just go back to keep drawing cards and gaining life as well. This card is busted, and while I really like the fact that this card is good in Modern, and I like the fact that it is seeing play, it is of course very interesting. It creates a lot of like interesting deck building situations, where it's like with Yawgmoth in particular, you were playing like 4 Eldritch Evolution, 4 Chord of Calling. Now I've seen some deck lists playing some amount of like the One Ring and splitting between the Eldritch Evolutions, because of how good this card is and how good it can be. And really on the floor, the fact that, you draw 6 cards, lose 6 life, again, is like a rate that everyone has paid over the course of time, and we all know that that is a good rate, honestly, for cards. That even if there's like a chance that you get to skip out essentially on paying the life one time when you have like 3 or 4 or 5 burden counters on the ring, it just makes it all worth it, because then you restart, and then if you look at all the cards you've drawn versus the amount of life you lost, you're drawing close to 2 cards per life, which is just an insane rate that anyone would take if you know anything about competitive Magic. So while the One Ring, certainly very powerful, and I believe it's going to be here to stay for a long time, unless there's a good way of getting rid of indestructible artifacts in the future. I could see this card getting banned, although I would rather see it restricted, not, I mean, kind of for flavor reasons, because obviously the drawback to the card is that the more cards that you want to draw, the more damage it's going to do to you later. And even if you decide that you do not want to draw cards with this, or can't draw with them, whatever, you're still going to take damage from the ring. And I think resetting it through playing another one is like part flavor fail, part kind of a cop out, because you're also like benefiting from casting another ring. I would like to actually see this card be one of the first Modern cards restricted in the format, simply to have other ways to reset the ring besides just playing more copies of the ring. Now, I believe that if you did that, some decks just wouldn't bother playing the One Ring. but I also believe that it is that powerful to where this is a card that you could play as a one of. You would play it, and you won't see people taking it up to 3, 4, 5 counters on it unless they're playing very specific decks to kind of abuse the drawing, whether it is playing like Shieldred or playing like Omnath or some way to like gain life to kind of outpace the damage that this One Ring is doing. But that is my thoughts, opinions on the One Ring and kind of the future that I could see with this card. If you guys enjoyed a video and want to see more videos like this, please smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, ring notification bells, all that fun, happy stuff, so you know when these videos get posted, rack up the views, and if does well, I'll plan on doing more of them. Of course, go in the links in the description. You'll go to my find my Twitch channel, Discord server. Go ahead, follow those links and join over there. That's going to do it for me. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope to see you all in the next video.